What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. As you can see, some big things have changed since we were last with you and since we were last three together shooting the pod. But for those of you who are new, or for those of you who somehow forgot, my name is Harry Hicks, and I'm joined, as always, by Max Botcher and Thomas McKeon. What's up? Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back.
Let's get it. Rebranded.
So yeah, we're here on season 2 of our podcast. We have had some big changes over the summer. We've put in a lot of work on what we're actually putting into this podcast, what we're putting out. We bought a studio, as you can see.
Yes.
We're downtown in a high rise.
Upgraded.
In this beautiful building. This
the penthouse.
suite.
The penthouse of the Sears Tower.
Yep, we are there. We are the very top, the pinnacle of our industry, and we've made it.
Yeah. Shout out to all the assistants you guys can't see behind the cameras right now.
Yeah.
I'm honestly worried that it's all going to go to our heads and we're just going to stop. But we love you fans so much that even though we've made it, here we are for another season.
Here.
Yeah.
We're still here, yeah.
Producing content.
Hours in the hair and makeup room, getting ready.
Yeah.
Before every podcast that most people just hear on Spotify. Well, without further ado, we would like to welcome you to the Talk Footy podcast, and let's jump into it. So, to start us off, I think we'll do a little bit of a recap about what happened this summer. There were a lot of transfers, so I'm just going to kind of rush through all these different changes, these team upgrades, departures, and arrivals for some of Europe's top teams. So don't mind me reading away here. But we will start off in North London with the Dirty Spurs. And Tottenham actually have done some very good business this summer. And as a Chelsea fan, unfortunately, I think Tottenham are going to be pretty good this year. They brought in Richarlison to strengthen their attacking line, to be up there with Kulusevski, Harry Kane, and Heung-min Son. I think that's a pretty good signing for them to add a little bit more depth there, to take a little bit of the responsibility away from Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, who have been phenomenal for years now. But what if they get injured? It's good to have a little bit of depth in those positions. They've also signed Langley from Barcelona, a little bit of a Barcelona reject there, but there is talent there, so I'm excited to see him back and playing. They have Perisic as well, who is a phenomenal player. He's been around a bunch of different teams, but I'm a big Perisic fan, so I'm happy to be able to watch him more consistently. And then I think their signing this summer is Bissouma in the middle there. Tottenham have a good midfield, but not great, and so a player like Bissouma, with his size, his dribbling ability, I think is a very good signing for them moving forward. Over in my home court with Chelsea, business has been poor. They have Sterling and Koulibaly through the door, which I think are two very good signings. Sterling, I think, often gets a bad rap for not having the finishing capability, but he does score a lot of goals nonetheless, and Chelsea struggle with goals, so I think that is huge. And then Koulibaly will help strengthen up some of that defense. We had Andreas Christensen and Tony Rudiger off to their prospective La Liga teams over the summer. So it is good to have Koulibaly through the door. Obviously what's the word? It is good to have Koulibaly through the door. Obviously a wonderful player for many years at Napoli. And it will be good to have a very strong, commanding, and a good leader there in the back to partner up with Thiago Silva. However, there are still many issues outstanding for Chelsea. They've had Lukaku out the door, but not really a true striker signed. I'm not sure if that's in the works. No midfielder signed, and still a lot of drama around Azpilicueta, Jules Koundé, Kimpembe, and kind of how they're actually going to solve their defense. So can't say I'm very pleased. Max, you can speak here briefly if you want to. I'll allow it.
All right.
No, but for Bayern, I think they've done some great business. We actually were fortunate enough to see them over the weekend at Lambeau Field. And we were able to we saw Gravenberch, Mazraoui, and De Ligt, 3 other new signings. We were not able to see Sadio Mane, who had just received the African Footballer of the Year award. but I think all 4 of those signings are great. I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredible for Bayern, and I feel like they're starting to enter their new chapter almost. Lewandowski obviously departing to Barcelona is a big loss for them, but now the whole team has to step up, honestly. And the goals, you got to replace 40 goals somehow, and it's got to come from, it's new signing Mane, Gnabry, Sane, Muller, a bunch of young players that usually Musiala, a lot of younger players that oftentimes Bayern has relied on Lewandowski. So I think it's going to be, I think their future is really big right now, and there's a lot of hope, but they have to score. And like Lewandowski is a very hard person to replace. So I'm excited, and I think we had a great window. So
yeah, I agree with that. I think Bayern did very well. A couple more teams that I'll touch on here. Liverpool, we see bringing in Fabio Carvalho, which I think is a very good signing, as well as Darwin Nunez, who initially had some critics but managed to bag 4 goals last week in a preseason game. So I think he is making a statement there, and I think he will have or could have a very successful season there at Liverpool. Over in Turin with Juve, signings of Angel Di Maria, Paul Pogba, and the outgoing of Paulo Dybala. I think that's pretty interesting all around there. I love Di Maria. He's a phenomenal player, and is kind of the best 4th man on any attacking line. So I think he will do very well there and add some seniority to that younger attack of Vlahovic and Fede Chiesa. And then Paul Pogba making his return is always exciting.
Let's go.
We get to see Mr. Electricity back at it, so I think that'll be pretty cool. And then Dybala will also be fun to see him linking up with Jose Mourinho to kind of prove himself, I think, on his own and show that he can really lead a team and bring them to the next level and bring Roma, into the Champions League. I'm gonna turn this off. I got like 2 more teams in the one. I'll do my page, so. Okay, good. And then last team that I'll touch on before I get into my top 3 is Manchester United. I think obviously they have Eric Ten Hag coming in, and they came off a despicable season last year that saw not only their team failing to perform, but their team failing to show any real confidence, their fan base doubting them. And obviously Manchester United is one of the biggest clubs in the world. And so I think that's pretty poor showing from them. So they had to come out. They had to do something. We've seen them bring in Lisandro Martinez in the back. I think he will be one to watch this season. A pretty exciting player there. One of the players I'm most excited to see. As well as Tyrell Malacia from Feyenoord. He's a left back. I don't know as much about him, but I'm also excited to see him falling in there. The left back position has been a little bit unsteady for them with Luke Shaw and Alex Telles not really performing last season as well. Specifically, Alex Telles not really coming. He's been there for 2 seasons now and has not really performed. So I think they're looking for a tried and true replacement to really fill that role. So I'm excited to see how Malacia plays there. And then as well, bringing in, announced today actually, Christian Erickson, who we all love to see back in the Premier League playing at the highest level. So I think that's pretty exciting. And also a phenomenal player. All that being said, so many transfers, so many new faces on new teams, which will be very exciting to watch. And I honestly, this season, or this transfer window has been ridiculous.
It's been crazy.
There's been so many signings, which has been very exciting. So now I'm going to go through 3 of my top teams and how I think they performed this window. And I invite you both to.
Oh, we're gonna
tear them apart. Tear them apart.
We'll tear you apart.
Get ready.
Yeah. Okay.
We're digging right to your core.
So, for number 3, I have another unfortunate team as a Chelsea fan, and that would be none other than Arsenal.
Heresy.
Tom was saying he wanted to use heresy on the podcast, so there it was. Well, this is not heresy. They have actually been doing pretty well in the window. Maybe not a new incoming, but I think them re-signing Eddie Nketiah is huge. He had a great last 2 months and really showed his worth to the team and to Mikel Arteta. So I think that's actually a great, signing, we can call it, for them. But then they've also brought in Fabio Vieira into the attacking mid, which I think he's from this could be incorrect. Porto
right?
or Sporting? I think it's Porto.
I think it's Porto, yeah.
But I think he'll add a lot of depth to that position because we saw Odegaard kind of go in and out of form last season. So I think having another option in that 10, Smith Rowe is obviously also talented, but having kind of a third option that's a little bit more, a little bit older, a little bit more proven. He had 17 assists last season, which shows he's a hell of a creator. So I think that'll be pretty exciting to have him in there. That's a great signing. I think Zinchenko is a phenomenal signing as well. Kieran Tierney, playing on that left back, has had some pretty bad injury, or a pretty bad injury record. So I think having Zinchenko in there, not only adds depth, but it adds talent as well. And Zinchenko's ability to, kind of slide in and kind of play in that, a little bit closer to the midline and distribute the ball, take shots, and create, I think is really underrated value of Zinchenko's game. And Max, I remember you shitting on Zinchenko last season, saying he was nothing compared to João Cancelo, which maybe is true because João Cancelo is phenomenal, but don't discount Zinchenko. I think he's a very good player.
Don't discount Zinchi boy.
Don't Zinchi. And then last but certainly not least is the other Man City man, Gabby Jesus, coming in to reunite with Mikel Arteta. I think that is a perfect signing for Arsenal. I think the value they got him for is very good, but I also think Jesus' ability to be so versatile, to play as kind of the lone striker, his ability to drop deeper and play as that little second striker, and also to play on either wing. I think he is a phenomenal player. Obviously, they're losing Lacazette. They lost Aubameyang over the January window. So they, first of all, needed a striker. But I think that ability to be in and around there, his proven abilities in the Premier League, playing at the highest level, playing under Pep Guardiola, I think is a perfect signing.
Yeah. First of all, you forgot Matt Turner, the goalkeeper.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not pleased about that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting because he's probably not going to get a lot of playing time.
Right.
But I want to say that Gabriel Jesus is like Lacazette fit into the team well in the fact that he allowed others to score around him. He had that build-up play. He kind of like made runs to unlock Martinelli, to unlock Saka. I think Jesus is going to be similar in his ability to drop deep, but he can also score. And he scored at Man City. He scored in he scored at a Manchester City team where everyone scored, not only one other player. And I feel like he's going to bring that. He's not going to be the guy to score 25 goals, but he's going to score enough and create enough for their attack to unlock.
He's also a big game player.
Yeah, I think
he's so overlooked at Man City just because they have all these little stars, and they brought Haaland in, obviously, and it's like, okay, Gabby Jesus has no room in that team if Erling Haaland's there. I don't know if that's exactly true. I think he still could have played well, and I think Pep Guardiola, is losing a key player to his team as well. Mm-hmm. Because Jesus, think about that goal he scored versus Chelsea. That's a huge goal. It was a huge sway, at least for Chelsea. It swayed their season. So he also has that ability to kind of unlock defenses and be a little scrappy when he needs to be, and kind of get that last touch on the ball to get it over the line, which I think is what a lot of players don't have.
I think it's going to be fun because he gets to be the man now. Like he's going to be the star for Arsenal, and he already plays with so much flair. I mean, he's Brazilian. Like, what Brazilian doesn't have flair? So he gets to be the star, and him and Saka and Martinelli and all these players, Odegaard underneath, they're going to partner up, and it's going to be such a fun offensive team to watch, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I don't see a lot of weaknesses in their team. I think they did a good job slowly developing this team. I think a problem they had in the past is they didn't have that player to score the goals or just kind of dominate the team. I think their captain is still Xhaka, right?
Aubameyang did it for a bit, but after he kind of started to stutter.
Yeah, but I kind of like those teams where it feels like everyone's on a pretty similar level. They were kind of like, a lot of these players were unknown a few years ago with Tomiyasu and Ben White in the back. I don't know. It's just like, as a Chelsea fan, I don't like it, but it's a scrappy, fun team to watch.
It's a great. I mean, they haven't been in the Premier or Champions League. I don't know exactly, but it's been like 5 years or something around there. And they've taken that time to actually rebuild. They've backed Arteta. He had so many doubters. He's not good enough. He doesn't have enough experience. Oh, like the time will come. That's what all the Arsenal fans kept saying. It's like, oh, just give him time. The time has come.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a big season for him. He's had the backing now. They've put in a bunch of money over this window, and he's had time now. And his team looks great.
Yeah.
They've really, reinforced where they needed to, not only adding talent, but adding smart, very smart players like Zinchenko. His ability to play in different positions will be huge for them if they do run into injuries. Having that depth on their team really puts them at a higher level. You think of Chelsea, you think of Man City, those two teams in particular with their crazy amounts of depth. Arsenal hasn't had that, and now they do.
Yeah, I think all the players back Arteta too so much. Like, he's such a players manager, and because they've been together so much, I mean, he's had a ton of ups and downs, honestly. There were times where I was like, he's getting sacked, like this weekend. But because they've been through so many ups and downs, I think now they have the perfect team. They invested money. I think they're going to finish top 4, honestly, with this squad. So,
and I hate to say it, but at least for, I'll hold off a few weeks before I make any predictions on the Premier League.
Yeah.
Wait till the transfer window's over. But Tottenham and Arsenal Chelsea should be sweating, basically. Tottenham and Arsenal have showed that they're back. They're competing to be in top 4. Obviously Tottenham is now in the Champions League, but they're pushing for 3rd. They're not going to settle with just Champions League football. And I think Chelsea should be worried, honestly. Yep. Or I am worried.
I'm scared.
Yeah. I can't sleep at night. Okay. Number 2, another unfortunate position. And the Premier League really has just cashed out this summer, which I guess we all knew was going to happen and happens a lot. But
who do you have?
I have Man City.
Who'd they get?
They have Erling Haaland, which is a great signing for his talent, his age, and the value they got for him. I mean, I guess I don't really need to speak on Haaland. We know the type of player he is. But not only did they bring in him, but they brought in Calvin Phillips and Julian Alvarez. And I think both of those players, are really what sets this window apart for them. I think Calvin Phillips is a phenomenal signing. I know I've spoken to you all about this before, but I think his ability to kind of be a rock in that midfield gives Rodri some flexibility. They're obviously losing Fernandinho over the summer, but Calvin Phillips being in there means Rodri can, first of all, take a break. He plays so much, so he can take a break, but also it gives them a little bit more of a defensive ability at times if they need it to. It lets De Bruyne go a little bit further up the pitch. It lets Bernardo Silva go further up the pitch. And just at the end of the day, Calvin Phillips is a great player. Obviously starting in England's midfield next to Declan Rice. So I think that's a great signing. And then Julian Alvarez, I didn't know too much about, but we just watched him over the weekend and he was terrific.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. And I think seeing him in these other preseason games, starting up top, when they first signed him, I was like, okay, he'll, be one for the future. I don't think that's the case. I think he's there to be playing week in and week out, in Pep's rotational system. And I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
Watching awesome. Him play, his press was so phenomenal. His link-up play and his confidence too. All looked, at Man City quality, which is scary. I'm frightened.
He looks like a much more natural fit in Pep's team, which we talked about than Haaland. Because we talked about Haaland just sits up top and he is the target man, but Julian Alvarez was pressing. His interplay between the wingers and the midfielders with De Bruyne, he's making runs that, I mean, Haaland makes those runs too, but it just looked different. I felt like he was more fluid of a player. But Man City also got that Stefan Ortega goalkeeper who I'm high on. And I think it's going to be trouble for Zach Turner, just from a USA perspective. Zach Steffen, sorry. Oh, I just converted him or combined. But yeah, no, that's good. City had a big summer.
Yeah, they did. Well, also, I mean, Zach Steffen's to Middlesbrough, I believe. So I think that's good for him. He'll likely get some more time than he did at City. But unfortunate for Zach Steffen, I think the fact that he's out on loan and the fact that he did have so many bad errors last season or the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I think it's tough for him.
I think it's going to be a different City team that we've seen in the past, just because Sterling and what's his name?
Jesus.
Sterling and Jesus have left, and Haaland's in. And Haaland, I'm still not sold that Haaland is the correct fit, or I think it's going to take a little bit for him to be the correct fit at Man City. We saw him score a goal over the weekend, but also we saw him kind of just like hang out in the middle of nowhere. He didn't seem connected in the team as much as a Jesus or Sterling would be. He didn't drift wide as much. And I feel like it's kind of a gamble to change up a system. I think Pep has done it because he's frustrated with his Champions League losses. He needs to switch something up because he's dominated the Premier League the past 5 years pretty much. And this is kind of a gamble for a big player. But I'm not completely sold that that's the right direction. I think Pep had it down with his attack and his system. I think he's going to have a similar system, but it's going to be a little different and might throw off the game just a tad, just a hair. Also, Zinchenko's gone. What's he going to do?
No.
Max does not care.
I actually disagree. I think he's going to score a ton of goals, honestly. I think he's going to score a ton.
The Bundesliga tax, he's going to score like 10.
But he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And he only played the first half. He's been injured, so he probably hasn't practiced a lot with the guys on the field fully. But I did like how they were looking to play these long balls to him. And he is that target man. He's fast enough and a good enough dribbler to make that turn and go for those runs. I mean, like, he got away, like that one block that we saw with Upamecano. I mean, he could have scored twice easily. So I think he's going to score 15, 20 goals, honestly.
I think I'm falling right in the middle of you two. I think he will score, but I don't think I think he's going to do well, basically. I don't think he's going to be the absolute star that we know him to be. And I think the difference is playing under Pep, I think he's still going to get rotated in and out of the system. And Pep doesn't have, his team is full of stars, which means that there's not kind of that one man for most of the season. So I think that's the difference. For most of the season, I think Haaland will just be, not just, but he'll be one of Pep's men. He'll be in the system. He'll be putting in, 45 minutes a week, basically, playing half the games. And I think the difference is in what he really does is that when they need that one guy, he can be that one guy. So for most of the season, he's just kind of another one of the guys, one of Pep's stars, but then come Champions League, he is the star. He is that guy on the field that will take the game by the scruff of his neck and get the ball in the back of the net. And I think that's the biggest factor, and I think that's why Pep got him. Because I think Haaland can change the game. De Bruyne can do that, but De Bruyne is playing a little bit deeper. I think that's Haaland's biggest facet that he brings to Man City. And then last but not least, my top. So this is a little bit weird.
Who's it going to be?
Tommy, I know you have some thoughts on this that we'll get to later. And straying away from all of the finances, I think Barcelona won the transfer window. And I think that because, again, ignore all the money because that is a nightmare. But they did what they needed to do. They kind of had an up and down season last year. They were pretty cold. They got Xavi. Xavi kind of rebuilt the team a little bit. And they went out the summer and they signed Rafinha, Lewandowski, and they re-signed Dembele. And I think all three of those, we'll call Dembele a signing as well. All three of those are great signings. Xavi really kind of, on Dembele specifically, kind of rebuilt him, gave him some confidence, got him back into the team. And he ended up having a great second half of the season, really contributing with his assists. Rafinha, we know, we saw his talent at Leeds, his ability to still score a lot, kind of in a struggling team. And then Lewandowski, there's nothing that needs to be said about him, putting up 30-plus goals for I don't know how many seasons in a row. One of the best football players of all time. And signing those three, whatever, we'll stick with it. Signing those three players is a crazy good window. All three of those players are phenomenal. And he's adding them to a team that already has Ansu Fati, it already has Memphis Depay, already has Aubameyang, already has Ferran Torres. So all these attackers. And I think the main complaint with Barcelona these days is, okay, they just keep signing attackers. But they also have a pretty good rest of their team, not as good as their attack. But I think we were just talking about Chelsea. We were just talking about Man City. They have also a crazy amount of attackers. You think about Chelsea's front line. Last season, they had Lukaku, Havertz, Pulisic, Mount, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, Christian Pulisic, Timo Werner. That's what, like 7-8 guys? That's a crazy amount of attackers. So Barcelona has, for that argument, every right to have just as many. You're going to say, why?
Chelsea didn't score any goals.
Okay, so yeah, but I'm just saying that, like, just on the fact of having that many, right? So I think Chelsea, whatever, they had scoring problems.
Right.
But, Man City has all these players as well, has all these attackers. They do score goals. So I don't like, and we'll see if they do score goals. But I think the difference here is that all of these players are very different. I mean, even just thinking about their front line or their, central forward, if they have Depay, they have Aubameyang, they have Lewandowski. Those are three very different players that can be used for three very different attacking aspects. We have Lewandowski, who we know is a clinical finisher. He can be that big man up there. We have Aubameyang, who can play those balls over the top. And Depay can play a little bit of, drop a little deeper, kind of make those connections in there. So having that versatility there is crazy because Xavi can go up every week and look at a team and say, okay, like, this is who I need to play this game. And that's, I think, very similar to kind of his previous coach, Pep Guardiola. And so I think what Pep is really doing here is kind of building a team and using aspects that he's gained throughout his career. And he sees Pep with all these attackers and Pep doing really well. And I think that's a little bit of where I see this team kind of building, is having all these different options. And so I think the reason why I'm really crediting Barcelona, at least, with the on the field stuff, is that they saw what issues they were having. And they jumped into gear and they turned it around and they signed three really good players.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think Barcelona showed everyone and reminded everyone how big of a club they are still, because they were able to recruit, and I'm going to bring Chelsea in here, but I mean, Chelsea had a contract on the table with Rafinha, right? Rafinha, like Lewandowski was rumored with Chelsea for a little bit.
Koundé is right now.
Koundé, who is now rumored to be at Barcelona soon. I mean, and these are players not only they were able to hijack and recruit, but also they're paying them less money than Chelsea's offering them, right? Which is saying something. De Jong is not wanting to leave the team, and they owe him $17 million. I mean, they're able to keep this guy by they're not even paying him at this point. So I think it shows, like, still, they're such a massive club. Players want to play for Barcelona. And they recruited so many players. Yeah.
I really credit Xavi because, like, think about Dembele a year ago. It was like not showing up to practice, saying he wants to leave, trying every option to get out the door. And it was like that for the first half of the season. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he's an integral part of the team. He wants to say he's re-signing a new contract and walking around like with his arm around Xavi.
Mm-hmm.
That's night and day.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm also excited to see how they play this season. I don't know all of these players are going to work. I think that's still up in the air, is if they actually play well, and if they actually get past the group stage. if they're playing well in the Champions League. I think that's what's still up for debate, is if they're actually going to play well. But I'm excited to watch El Clasico and see Lewandowski versus Benzema. Like, I think it's back on, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to disagree with you, but I think they had a pretty good window. I think that I went into their depth chart, and I think every single one of these players that they signed has the potential to be a first-team player, or at least have lots of minutes in league games. My only criticism is they need to figure out what they're going to do with their fullback situation. Dani Alves is gone. Jordi Alba is old. Is Jules Koundé going to play right back? He's kind of a center back. He's an outside center back. Who likes to dribble, so maybe he can play that right back position. Because Serginho Dest is not a Barcelona level player, and right now that's their first team right back. So I agree that they did really well with getting a lot of attackers, but their midfield it's relatively weak. They have a lot of young players, La Masia players. They have Gavi and Pedri, and Busquets still has those front three, and Frankie de Jong if he stays, and Kessie they got on a free.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, like if the fullbacks aren't figured out, then they aren't going to. And if they are what they are, like Alba and Dani Alves last year were much more defensive, and they have to figure out how to get. You can get all these forwards, but you can only put 3 of them on the field. You need more attacking forwards, and Frankie de Jong and Pedri I think worked great last year. Javi was kind of figuring out how to use those as kind of the 4th and 5th attackers when they did attack. If Frankie leaves, which he might leave, we still don't know, then is Gavi good enough as an attacker to fulfill that role, or do they need a right back? I feel like there's still a lot of questions of how they're going to set up, and I think they still need to get a right back. But for what it's worth, I think all the players they got were really good value, and I think like upgrades. Like Lewandowski's better than Aubameyang, and like Rafinha is really great. So yeah,
high risk, high reward.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think I think there also could be due another. If they're bringing in Koundé, they also have been linked heavily with Cesar Azpilicueta. So any of these players also could add to that back line. They have Christensen as well.
Yeah, they destroyed Chelsea this offseason.
Yeah,
honestly,
they might get.
They took their whole team.
Azpilicueta still,
yeah. So I think there's still potential work for them to be done. It also could be interesting to see if they play 3 in the back. If they play Christensen, PK, Koundé, or Araujo, whoever's around. And then, I don't know, maybe play Rafinha a little bit deeper. Rafinha is actually very good defensively as well.
Yeah,
he has the tenacity about him.
He can play a right mid at Leeds.
Left mid, Gavi. I guess if he's going to be in the middle. I think that's a little bit more of a question over there on the left, who you would play there. But they can also play Serginho Dest as more of a wing back as well. So it could be interesting to see if they play 3 in the back. That is pretty popular formation these days.
We'll see.
But yeah,
that's the new trend.
Yeah, good signing, good window for Barcelona.
All right, I want to talk about Barcelona's financial problems. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I kind of want to talk about the difference between last year and this year, because last year it was the same story. Barcelona is screwed. They got so screwed they couldn't pay Messi. A lot of the older players had to take large salary cuts. This year it's different. And the reason why is La Liga has their own kind of financial fair play separate from UEFA, and it's more proactive. So going into the year, they basically come to the clubs and say, hey, we think you're not going to, they kind of run some simulations, see if they're going to break even on the year. And if they think a club is going to break even on their revenues versus their expenses, they allowed the club to make whatever signings and register those players. But last year, since Barcelona had been mismanaged for years, basically spending €1 billion in the transfer market over 5 years and only getting like half of that back from player sales plus COVID hitting, they were not breaking even whatsoever. So they came to Barcelona and said, for every dollar or every euro you spend on a player, you have to save 3 euros. So that's in their like red zones. Like they're forced, and how they enforce that is say you can only spend this much amount of money on your salary cap. So that's their salary cap was essentially slashed in half last year, and that's why they couldn't afford Messi on his like 100,000 or like $1 million a week salary, and that's why they had to have those salary cuts. This year, they're able to actually, they're going to be able to pay their players, but because they're kind of in contact with La Liga and basically saying we're going to pull these levers to increase our revenue, and those levers are selling off their TV revenue for the next 25 years and getting all that money like now.
Yeah, that's like ridiculous. And I saw something about that too, about that like red zone that they're in and trying to get out of that. But I was trying to think like, well, I feel like for most teams, they'll use like player sales to get out of those holes. Like I know, whatever, I obviously know more about Chelsea, and there are different players that they're trying to sign off because Chelsea always, has these big transfer windows where they buy a lot of people, but they also are pretty good, at least have been in recent years, about selling people, like Hazard, Morata as well. But I feel like I'm trying to think of Barcelona, like people they've sold. They sold Neymar and then bought Coutinho and they bought Dembele. And that was like all
Griezmann.
Griezmann. And that was all the Neymar money. Yeah. And then they just kept buying to try to like replace Neymar ever since he left. And it's not worked out. But I'm trying to think this past window, because they sold Coutinho, but that was like 20 mil. Yeah. And then they just re-signed Dembele. So, I mean, I guess his contract was up anyway. But they haven't had like money. I'm trying to think of like other big players that they've sold over the past couple of years, but I can't think of any.
They've lost money on Coutinho, on those big players that they sold. Griezmann, they didn't sell him for that much.
Oh, they sold, remember Malcolm was like a huge signing.
Oh, yeah.
And then
He's
after a
Spartak,
year,
maybe?
after a year, they sent him off to Russia. And he's gone.
Marseille maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost $500 million in 5 years in the transfer market.
That's crazy.
They spent 1.1 billion and sold 600 million.
Wait, a question. So before you get into like what they do about this, is the financial fair play. So there's like the FIFA financial fair play, but so how are they skirting that as well? Because that like I feel like has to come into. But I do know that like they've so many teams are able to get around
but
that FFP, especially with COVID, since they got so many like breaks in there.
Yeah, the COVID adjustments.
COVID adjustments was basically just free money,
and that's essentially how Barcelona got out of the UEFA ones. But the UEFA one is kind of retrospective, so they look at the past 3 years, and if you're like okay in the past 3 years, including like the COVID adjustments, then they don't restrict you. Or they don't have like these punishments afterwards, which are like kind of fines, or to the most severe extent, you can't play Champions League or Europa League football. Barcelona takes
Conference League. Don't forget.
Or Conference League. I'm sorry. La Liga takes a proactive approach where if you fail your financial fair play in La Liga, you can't sign the players you've bought over the summer. So right now, as of now, you can't register. You can't register them.
Because that was with. They had that last season too, right? It was
they were struggling like Aguero and Aubameyang over the winter, but that was different.
Right.
But Aguero, it was like last minute trying to figure out their finances. Ferran Torres. So they're in a similar situation where they haven't registered any of these players. I think Lewandowski, Rafinha, Kessie, Christensen, none of those players are registered for La Liga at this point. But they have to
only Champions League, only Champions League, no La Liga.
Right.
They're like a separate team.
And last year, La Liga basically put down the foot and said, we're cutting your salary. This season, it seems like they're more like in contact with each other. And Barcelona is kind of like saying, we have the ability to get revenue. We have the ability to get revenue through what they're calling levers or levers, as the British are saying. The levers. Which are basically they're selling off. They have like a TV deal for the next 25 years, and they're selling off like 25% of it, and they've raised like 500 million so far by doing that. And that money, they're basically saying La Liga, hey, we have the revenue this year, so because of that, we can actually register these players because our revenue is going to match our expenses.
Is this on a yearly basis? So is that
So
what do they do next if they
exactly because it's such a short term thing that next year they're gonna have to raise. they're trying to get back to the point where in 2019 they were making $1 billion plus in revenues, and that dropped like pretty sharply in COVID. And they're expecting to like it's a kind of bounce back every year a decent amount, maybe 100 million this year. And that's what they're trying. That's their goal, is trying to raise their revenues through putting a competitive team out there. But it's
and I guess, I mean, you also get awards for
Champions
getting
League.
further in the Champions League.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, winning La Liga.
So if they get through 2 legs of the Champions League also, or 2 rounds, that's also big money.
Right. But the hole they're digging is they're going to have less TV revenue in the next years. They're going to have last year they basically put off a bunch of short-term debt by refinancing, which meant they're just going to have the higher interest rates. They're going to have to pay more debt, like pay more debt every year. So it seems like they're digging a hole, and these levers are going to run out. They can't keep on selling their TV revenue.
Is this why I'm seeing Spotify on every T-shirt, sock? Rename the stadium like Spotify, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
they're trying to get as much money as they can.
That's why you could book Camp Now as your wedding venue. Yeah.
Really?
Kind of sick. Yeah, but it was like so expensive. But yeah, it was literally, or you could like have like a cocktail party there. Like you do all this stuff.
Wow. They're finding all the, I mean, so like one way to increase your profit is to increase your revenues, but another way is to cut your costs. And I feel like they're increasing their costs.
That's
Like,
that's the like the scope of what their transfer market is. Like, yes, they're making these sick deals and they're making their team better, but is that worth it? Because with the team, without any of those transfers, would they still be competitive enough to like make it to the Champions League? And that'll be low cost, still pretty. People would still watch Barcelona without like Lewandowski, without Rafinha, without Kessie, without Christensen. They would still probably make the Champions League, get that cash. They'd still, with Xavi, they'd still probably compete, maybe not as closely for the La Liga title. They'd spend so much less money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that
It feels
scope.
like they, just like let themselves rebuild for like 2 years. It's like they refuse to like
They
be
refuse.
a second tier team,
Right.
which I kind of respect.
Yeah, no,
but
it's-
also it might not work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I say this sitting on my couch like 1,000 miles away. I don't know what's happening in there, but from the past mismanagement, it doesn't seem like it's anything different. It seems like they're still very short-sighted, and they're just trying to like figure out the situation, and they're like playing this off as like financially responsible when it's like not. It's not at all.
I feel like it's interesting to see a lot of these other teams and coaches now speak out, and they're like, I have no idea how Barcelona is getting this money.
Yeah.
Honestly. And it's, I know the Bayern coach,
Nagelsmann.
was like, I honestly have no idea how they're able to afford these players. If they've reported we're over $1 billion in debt, and they're not paying off that debt, but they're still signing players, they're not paying their current players to sign new players, like that kind of like seems really scary to me, honestly.
I think like your explanation there, Tommy, gives me more faith in what La Liga is doing. And that makes, they're having to show La Liga, okay, we have this money here. And I mean, it's not good, future business moves for them, or at least it doesn't seem to be, at least from my perspective. But at least they're doing something about it. I think it's weird that UEFA hasn't like flagged them and said, before, like, also for our financial fair play, this also doesn't work. And you need to show us as well. You need to do something else for us. That's what I think is weird. Or like, I mean, obviously FIFA is a notoriously shady operation.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of from my perspective, that seems like a failure on UEFA's part.
Well, I think it's the nature of how they do it. Like in next year, UEFA could be like, last 3 years you guys sucked, and give them a fine or say they can. It's retrospective, so that could be the storyline of next year. It's just the fact that La Liga does it up front, which is honestly good for, like, if they didn't cut their salary wage last year, they would have paid Messi $1 million plus a year in wages, and they'd be in a much worse spot they are now. And that is the point of financial fair play. It's not to even out the playing field, is to make sure these clubs don't go bankrupt like crazy and spend like crazy. Obviously, it doesn't work perfectly because Barcelona is trying their hardest to run the team into the ground. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it is interesting. Okay, and just to like take this to, a couple steps back to other teams, I think it's interesting because most of the game you watch is all on the field. You get to see what, who's scoring the goals, who's winning, who's, getting trophies, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what most people see. And then if you watch a little closer, you see all the like tactics. You get to see, these transfer strategies. You get to see them rebuilding their teams and whatnot. But it's still very on the field. And I think one thing that I've appreciated with, how much more time we've put into watching soccer over these past couple of years is also kind of getting one step further back and seeing what's going on in the actual business of the companies. And it's very interesting to see how some clubs every year run into some issues with their finances, like Barcelona and Chelsea. It's kind of always something they're always kind of scrambling to get the team in and to register the team or get the transfer across the line. And then you see teams like Liverpool, and it's like butter. It's like they, at least from my perspective and what I've seen, seem to be run like so well. And they have these players, you don't really hear about them. And then like suddenly, bang, new signing, Darwin Nunez through the door, no drama, no questions asked. It's like Liverpool have this player. And I think that really speaks to Liverpool, or, speaks well for Liverpool and some of these other teams where you don't really hear much of this noise in the background. And they kind of get it all done. And, I guess that means I know less about them, but I think it's because most of the stuff that the headlines I hear, if they're about finances and about management, are usually bad.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's interesting with, it's hard with the La Liga because obviously they don't want their teams to go under, but as a league themselves, they want Barcelona to bring in these big players. Like Lewandowski, bringing in Lewandowski for El Clasico and for the league itself is so good for La Liga. So they have to kind of play both sides, honestly. And Bayern, the whole time when they were selling Lewandowski, they wanted that paid in one installment right away because they thought they would never get their money. And that's crazy to think about, that they think Barcelona in 2 or 3 years is not going to exist.
Yeah, they're not going to trust.
They don't trust
this shady dealer, Barcelona.
Yeah, so it's big.
That's funny. I guess it's weird how large these organizations are. Like you see the team on the pitch, but then there's so much going on in the background that you have no idea about. Yeah, that's my thought.
Love that. Yeah, I love La Liga. It's such a great league, honestly.
It is so fun.
There's this is a whole nother can of worms, but La Liga is
La Liga's dope.
Go La Liga.
They're good. They're very good.
Incredible. All right. Everyone's favorite segment 3, quick questions, random
Yes, sir.
questions.
Yes, sir.
Where are we going to go crazy?
Okay, yeah.
So I'll go ahead and ask you guys both the same question, and I want to hear your guys' answer. 60 seconds or less.
You got a stopwatch?
And I got an internal clock. I'll count. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Just count really loud in your mic while we talk at the same time.
That'd be great for that, too.
Okay, let's do it. Harry, let's start with you.
Any preface, or I just got to go in cold?
No, these are crazy random, have nothing to do with each other.
Are they about what are they? What's the topic? Are they about
sports?
Soccer?
Sports.
How tall is Timo Werner in centimeters? Go.
I could not even guess.
Okay, yeah.
All right, let's start with a more serious one. Who, for the upcoming season, is your breakout team that you are very excited to watch?
Dortmund. They're going to challenge for the Bundesliga title. I'm not sure. I hope Sebastian Aller is doing okay. Obviously, he has that tumor, so I hope that's going well. But they've had some really good signings with Schlotterbeck in the back, coming in from, I forget the team name. Starts with the F, in Germany.
Freiburg.
He played very well there. They also brought in Karim Adeyemi. And more importantly, Lewandowski is gone from Bayern. And so I think all of those combinations together, I think Dortmund did some great business this season. And I think with their adversaries, Bayern, losing a key player and having to kind of rebuild their system, I think is a great chance for Dortmund to do well in the league. But I think they also have the capabilities to go further in the Champions League as well. Boom, I win.
Tommy, who is your breakout team in any league for this next season?
It's maybe a little weird, but I think it's Leeds. Leeds are going to come back because Bielsa, they were popping 2 years ago, and then they had an awful year last year. I actually really like their transfer window. Calvin Phillips and Rafinha gone, but I love when a team sells off their big players and brings in a lot. And Jesse March got those Americans in. We got Tyler Adams. We got Brendan Aronson. And Mark Roca from Bayern is coming in. I think they need a rest from Bielsa's them running to death, but I feel like they're gonna breakout season for them is gonna be like maybe 7th or 8th, which I think they could come back.
It's big from relegation.
Yeah, Erickson has some big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right, Tom, let's start with you for question number 2.
Yeah.
At this very moment,
Yeah.
who is your Ballon d'Or frontrunner?
This precise moment.
This precise moment.
I think it's tough to pick a front runner because I think it comes down to we get a sense when Champions League starts, when someone I feel like Champions League really we get a sense of who's gonna be the front runner. Like Benzema had his crazy season. The only other way is like crazy goal count in the league. I think it's Mbappe. Might be weird, but I think Mbappe is gonna have a year. That's my tip of my tongue. Mbappe.
Harry, at this very moment in time, who is your Ballon d'Or?
I heard you the first time I got the question. I think Mbappe is a good shout. I don't know if I see enough going on in League One, unfortunately. But obviously a great player. I think I'm going to go with, obviously we have Lewandowski and Benzema doing well. I think I'm going to go with Kevin De Bruyne, though. And I think just he's one of the best players playing right now. And his consistency is crazy. And he also was scoring like crazy at the end of last season. It's kind of tough to make this prediction in the middle of summer when they haven't really been playing. And I think what it's really going to come down to is who's performing in Qatar. Obviously, Belgium has not been great on an international level in these tournaments, but I think he has the ability to. I think Man City are a ridiculous team, and I think he is the heart of that team.
Let's get into some start, bench, sell.
All right.
Let's do a few of these. So I'll give you 3 players. Start 1, bench 1, sell 1.
All right. Am I up first or who's up?
Yeah, you're up first.
All right.
Let's go Sterling, Rafinha, Luis Diaz.
I'll go with sell first to rip the bandage off. And unfortunately, I'm going with the new Chelsea boy, Raheem Sterling. And that's, I think, pretty harsh because I think Sterling is a phenomenal player and I think he gets underrated. But I'm going to underrate him right now and say sell him. And I'm going to start Rafinha. And I think that's because, if I'm playing a 90-minute game, I think I want him in there most of the time. I think he's great going forward. He's great creating, and I think he's great defensively as well. I think that's an underrated part of his game, is his ability to kind of track back and make the tackle when necessary. And then I'm going to sub on, or I guess bench, but my sub would be Luis Diaz. An absolutely electric player, can go in there and kind of cause a little bit of chaos, make these crazy runs, make these dribbles, and get a goal in there as well. So
that was completely different than what I thought you were going to say, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I thought you were going to
say. I like to be guessing that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Diaz, Sterling.
I would have the
Rafinha.
opposite. I would sell Rafinha and start Sterling. I think Rafinha hasn't proven himself on a big team. I think he looked great on that Leeds team that didn't do well in the last year. He looked like a god on that team.
No, he looked good the year before, though, too, when they were playing better. That's
true.
I'm debating you now. But
all right, let's debate. I think
Debate
Sterling
it.
is the most underrated, one of the most underrated players I feel like put him. I think he's gonna thrive at Chelsea. That's my 2 cents.
Tom, let's start with you. Start, bench, sell,
I don't want your 2
Lewandowski.
cents.
Start, bench, sell, Lewandowski, Haaland, Benzema.
This is tough.
One season only. Don't take age.
One
into
season.
It. Don't take age into it.
Oh, okay. For the next season, I'm gonna start Benzema. I'm gonna bench.
Do it.
I'm gonna bench Haaland, and I'm gonna sell
Yeah.
Lewa.
That's what needs to happen.
That's what you're going to say too?
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
for it, Tom.
I think last year, no, I think it would be the same. I think Haaland's too exciting, and I think Benzema's the best striker in the world. I think Haaland is more electric than Lewandowski. Lewandowski, love him, but he plays in the Bundesliga and racks up garbage time goals. I said it.
I think it'll be crazy to see him playing in La Liga in like a much more competitive league, a much better league, with much less proven system in there.
Yep.
Where he actually has to go out and kind of prove himself. And I know you were actually saying this over the weekend, that it'll be a big summer or big season for Lewandowski to kind of prove himself as a player individually rather than just Bayern Munich striker.
Yep. Completely different leagues for sure.
I agree with you though. I would do the same thing. Benzema's too good.
All right, last one. This might be tough, but start, bench, sell, De Ligt, Koulibaly, Jules Koundé.
I think start is easy. Start Koulibaly. I think his Asian experience is half of that point, but then also just his ability to be locked down defensively, have pretty good passing, pretty good dribbling, and all those options in there. But I think for a center back, if I'm starting a center back, I want him to be experienced. I want him to be locked down, and that's what Koulibaly is. That's why Chelsea signed him. I think I will see, if I was a businessman, I would sell De Ligt to get that transfer fee. But I would bench De Ligt because I think he's just better than Jules Koundé. And if I'm talking about center backs specifically, which I think is kind of what this question is, definitely I want De Ligt over Jules Koundé. I think part of Jules Koundé's value is his ability to be great, play a little bit on that right side of a three, or have the ability even to play a little bit on the right back. But I think for a true center back, I want Matthijs de Ligt. He's still young, but he has great experience. He's been a captain of. He was captain of Ajax when they went that far. And I think he's just. I think he's a better defender than Jules Koundé. Jules Koundé has definitely better moving forward up the field, but for just a center back, I want De Ligt. He's good in the air too, and on a volley on his debut.
Oh yeah, little scorer.
Yeah.
Tom, start, bench, sell, De Ligt, Koulibaly, Jules Koundé.
The same thing. I agree with Harry. Koulibaly is top 5 defender in the world. De Ligt is a big boy, and Koundé is exciting but unproven in the big games.
This one you guys might need to think about a little bit. Tom, we'll start with you for this one. One player, current or past, that you would like to see play live.
I want to definitely Maradona. I would love to see Maradona play. I've heard stories. I want to be. I heard about this game. I want to be at World Cup. I think it was like 1974 or something. What was he playing? The 70s.
Idea.
I think it was 1974. When he was playing at Napoli, Italy versus Argentina at Napoli Stadium.
That'd be crazy.
And they're all shouting at Maradona.
Yeah,
right?
I want to watch that game. I want to watch Maradona play at that game.
Imagine seeing the hand of God
I want to see
game.
the hand of God, but I think
be
that would be a
awesome.
sweet game.
Harry, one player you'd like to see live. I'm just gonna repeat it for TikTok.
I get it. Go
One
ahead.
player you'd like to see live, past or present.
So I think that's a good shot for Maradona. And I think I want a Barcelona player so I can be in Barcelona watching this game. And I think I'm just going to go kind of similar to you, honestly. And actually, I've been fortunate enough to watch Messi live. But I think watching Messi playing along, like I guess I can't go that specific on the game, but like playing with Suarez and Neymar
El Clasico.
against Madrid in Barcelona, and the same thing when they're all chanting Messi, like that would be unbelievable, unbelievable. And I think to be at one of those games to watch one of, if not the greatest player of all time, would be like beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to watch the Ankara Messi goal.
Yeah.
Ankara Messi,
Ankara
Ankara
Messi.
Well, yeah, to watch him run from like halfway. And the game I went to was El Clasico, which was phenomenal. The atmosphere was crazy, and unfortunately, it was 0-0.
But still.
So yeah, no, still it was great. But to watch Messi like score a goal, score that third goal and put his jersey up would be like unbelievable.
Or like a Barcelona PSG La Remontada.
Yeah. Sergio Roberto.
I saw Messi score a penalty when I was in
Chicago
Spain.
or Soldier Field?
No, in Spain.
Oh.
At Barcelona, Soldier Field.
Well, because Argentina.
About
Yeah, Argentina, they
yeah.
played.
I think also
Yeah.
like a classic World Cup game would be like crazy,
Insane, yeah.
Like we were saying.
I was going to say Ronaldinho. Because I feel like he's, not only is he a great player, I felt like when I watch his highlights, he's an entertainer. Like he wants to entertain the crowd. He wants to get the crowd into it. Similar to Neymar. Like they just want to have fun almost. Okay, last one. Just kind of a little fun one. Harry, let's start with you. Would you rather be an all-star on an MLS team, superstar, or ride the bench on a mid-tier Prem team, maybe a Newcastle, maybe a Wolves, and sub in, 60th minute every week? Get some playing time.
If you would have said, if it wasn't a mid-tier team, like, okay, what you said Newcastle?
Newcastle, Wolves.
Okay, well, Newcastle about to be electric, so I would say Wolves. Would I want to be Carlos Vela? Yeah, I think so. I would rather be... that's a tough question, honestly. That's a tough question. But I think I would play... I think the feeling of being like an all-star, of having like being the go-to guy on your team, and of being, in this situation, I'm assuming good.
Yeah.
Would be, I think I would prefer that more than just riding the bench. And also, I think you can think about if you're riding the bench on a mid-tier team, your team also isn't really getting that much glory. And you're kind of grinding out those games. You're grinding out the practices, the hard ones. You're kind of frustrated as a team also often as well. If I'm Carlos Vela, I'm, fighting for the MLS Cup, at least more, whatever. I think I would do that.
Tom, would you rather be an all-star on an MLS team or ride the bench on a mid-tier Prem team?
I actually think I'll ride the bench. I don't need to be the star. I think playing the Premier League would be so cool. I think that's the experience I want. And I'm fine being on like a mid-level side. I think that's there's a beauty to those teams that are always in the Premier League. They're never gonna, maybe once every 50 years, make the Champions League. Fight for regulation every 10 years, and just like grind it out like that. And I feel like, I don't know, just as an American, I think that'd be a good experience. I'm
you're an American?
I'm an American. I'm an American. I get to play there. I think that's cool. A cool experience. I think I'd be embarrassed by being a superstar.
Yeah. Spotlight. It takes
Yeah,
a certain
sure.
person to be a
Yeah, I don't want
superstar.
that
You
spotlight.
know me, I'm so arrogant.
all the paparazzi are going to be outside.
Exactly.
I guess it's nothing different than what we deal with like in our day-to-day
Exactly,
lives.
yeah.
Like, we're gonna have to go home and
We
like,
can't go outside. We order everything.
hide from the paparazzi. Yeah,
To our
we
penthouse.
order
Fast
everything.
Food, pad thai every night.
Yeah. Uber
I want
Eats
some pad
everything.
Yeah, you guys want to get pad thai later?
Yeah,
let's
no.
stop right here.
That does it for me.
Actually, let's stop.
Actually,
right
let's
here.
wrap it
go
up.
get some pad
Okay.
thai.
Let's wrap it.
No, for real though, I think. Thank you all for watching or for listening, wherever you like to consume our podcast. We really do have fun doing this. We are very excited for this season to get underway. We have first Premier League game, Arsenal Crystal Palace on Friday, which is in 3 days. So that's awesome. And I'm very excited. I can't wait. Games are back. And so is the podcast.